But when Gary catches her looking his way, she nervously turns her head. As for our boy, he's fast asleep on Gary's shoulder. Later, they arrive at the castle ruins near the marshes. And since dawn has already broken, the students are instructed to set up their camp. Gary says Ray saw the silver-haired girl looking at her. While Ray wonders what there is to see, Gary tells him to look behind him if he doesn't believe it. That's when they both turn and sneak a look at the girl. Caught secretly gazing at her crush, Sylvia gets flustered and starts acting clumsy while setting up her camp. When his friend is proven right, Ray thinks it's because of her red hair. But it reminds Gary that there are a lot of redheads here. Like Kylie, Ian and the twins, Slot and Badger. Admitting he's right, Gary gives a devious smirk and asks Ray if he's going to ignore this. Because Sylvia is a stunning girl, but our boy doesn't even seem to care. Meanwhile, Dan sneaks off and goes behind the castle ruins. His friend calls out to Monk. Walking behind the ruins, both feel nauseous from a pungent stench worse than dead rats. Guessing where the smell's from, Dan looks at that awful swamp and says he can't even see the end of this slimy place. While Dan and Monk look around, Lancey sneaks up behind them and scares them to death by saying it's a swamp. Lancey gives them a death stare and says they'd better go pitch their tents and sleep, unless they want their legs ripped off by sharp worms in that swamp. Night falls and the fire crackles. Ray slips out of the castle without the guard seeing. He remembers doing some scouting during dinner and concluding he could escape without dealing with the guards. Just as Ray is about to leave, someone grabs his hand. It turns out to be Sylvia, and she asks where he's going at this hour. Our boy, who's telling the truth, says he's off to hunt magical beasts. Worried, Sylvia asks if he's going crazy and reminds him they aren't near Averian anymore. He keeps warning her that she might encounter even a mid-level monster, and the knights won't even have time to save her. Quickly pulling his hand away, Ray says he'll be fine and can handle mid-level monsters. It's no problem for him. Watching his attitude, Sylvia feels sad and goes off to hunt as well. The sun rises the next day. The knights fling the curtains open, waking everyone up, shouting, "Lazybones," and announcing that the last one up will be punished. Jerry wakes up and gets terrified seeing Ray lying there, because his blood-red eyes are wide open, and that's freaking Jerry out. Jerry asks her if she stayed up all night. Our boy, who just went to bed after staying up all night, assures her he's sleeping well, mumbling that he's not stupid. Jerry realizes he hasn't slept all night and bolts out to avoid getting punished in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Ray smiles as he looks at the dragon system, and at this hunting rate, he calculates he can collect the maximum amount of low-tier monster crystals and start absorbing mid-tier ones by the time he reaches Averian Knight Academy. Then, they continue their journey to the academy, with all the cars following the knights leading the way. As they pass through a place like a creepy forest, Wilfred stops when he senses something ahead. Sensing danger, Wilfred signals Lancia to leave the area, because now, students will face the challenges on their own. Worms suddenly start popping out of the ground, knocking the cars off balance. While Gary thinks it's too quiet outside and Ray is nodding off, the horse whinnies in pain as something attacks it. It turns out sharp worms blocked their path and dove into the car. While the sneaky worm attack terrifies some, Gary and Ray draw their swords and prepare for battle, starting to slice through the monsters. As the worm crawls to attack a girl, Gary jumps in front of her and carves the monster up with his sword. Some see streams of blood flowing from the worms and tremble with fear. Gary predicts the sharp worms are traveling in swarms, meaning more are coming. He's telling the others to stay alert and get out of the car. As the others come to help, Gary orders them to fight in the open and form teams of 3 back-to-back to avoid gaps in their defense. By the way, Kai seems super hyped to kill the worms. Ray thinks they're getting a bit too excited and activates his dragon eyes. Watching them all absorbed in battle, our boy realizes that all the sharp worms are just entry-level magical beasts, so there's nothing to worry about. As he thinks, his eyes fix on the cliff top where he spotted the 6 knights who left earlier. Our boy, getting ready to sleep in the car, is spotted by Dan. Dan asks where he's going and tells him not to break formation. Ray yawns widely, saying they're just low-level monsters and won't need his help since the numbers will be even once he leaves. As the knights watch the students from the cliff, they assume Rayan is scared of the monsters and will only get a red belt. The other knight points to Gary, who seems to be doing quite well, and explains that he attacks without hesitation, kills in one hit, and consciously controls his body to avoid wasting any movement. Predicting Gary would get a white belt, Wilfred points at Sylvia and concludes she doesn't attack proactively but is extraordinarily observant. While the other knight says her stance is perfect, Sylvia impressively dodges a sharp worm and slashes it with her sword. Watching her movements, Wilfred says she's holding her ground, and once she finds an opening, it's over for the enemy, Lancy. Seemingly impressed by Sylvia's attacks, Winfred remarks that there isn't a single stain on her clothes. Right then, something explodes from underground, and it looks like a giant, sharp insect bursts out. All the students are terrified of this giant worm, and it's like they've all bunched up into one big mass. The worm leans toward one of the children, trembling with fear. The poor kid's knees buckle, and he collapses to the ground. Just as the worm is about to attack, our red-haired Ian jumps in front of the boy. And with those strong muscles, he's tearing the worm's tentacles apart. Meanwhile, Ian shouts that he won't let anyone hurt his comrades and tears the monster apart in a rage. The twins, Sloth and Badger, join him and slice through the giant worms like pros. Kyle, who seems to be counting how many worms he's killed, stabs his sword into the monster and concludes that he's taken down 45. The knights watching them from above are left in stunned silence, because they didn't even have to lift a finger to help. Those red-haired brats did a pretty good job killing the monster. Except for Tommy Ray. And it looks like they're almost done. After the red-haired kids kill the worm, Ian asks his teammate if he's okay. And everyone's relieved because the monsters finally kicked the bucket. Watching the students closely, Winfred thinks Ian is a real gem, seeing that he's not just physically strong, but also knows how to look out for his teammates. Then there's Ray, snoring in the car without a care in the world. Afterwards, they all pile into the car, and Gary asks Ray why he didn't join the war. He says it's dangerous here, and if something happens, no one can save him. Our boy stretches, says he's exhausted, and gets out of it by mentioning the knights are already watching them. Winfred is completely confused, while Gary admits that he is a total lone wolf. And he's trying to figure out who the child in the prophecy is. As they continued their journey to the academy, Kyle felt proud of himself for killing the monsters. Dan appreciates that he's doing a good job. They assume they'll turn into real knights in the blink of an eye. Dan dreams of getting a white belt if they get lucky. Dazed and seemingly unaware of what a white belt is, Jerry asks him about it. It explains that from that moment on, all knights have different ranks. And it says those following them are the White Tassel Guardians, the high-ranking knights. He adds that these knights eventually received a white belt, which meant their skills were certified through tests and exams. Dan then reveals that there are also green and black belts, representing different skills. However, the red belt supposedly represents the lowest-ranking knight. When he hears this new info, and Dan lets it slip that the red belt is for those who fail the exams, our boy's eyes widen in total shock. Dan continues his explanation, saying that knights who receive the white belt will be given personal trainers, among other rewards and resources. By the way, the red belts aren't that lucky because they'll get basic training but nobody will care about them. They're free to do what they want. And since the academy's given up on them, they can just do their own thing and slip away. But when Ray hears about the red belt, he's over the moon, thinking he can move heaven and earth if he gets his hands on one. And that means he'll have all the time in the world to hunt magical monsters. This means he will quickly obtain higher-rank monster crystals and abilities. Getting fired up, he clenches his fist and believes he must do his best to get that red belt. The next scene takes us to the Averian Knight Academy. After a long journey, the students finally arrive, and the sight of the academy captivates them. After getting out of the car, just as he's thinking how cool it is, our boy freezes up seeing this huge, beautiful place. The Averian Knight Academy looks like a massive castle with enormous gates. The students are speechless with awe because this place is exactly how they imagined it. They murmur that this academy is a city where only knights live. Marveling at the mana crystals placed throughout the academy, students realize they are Arya's energy source and that not even a single torch is used for lighting. Thinking the academy is too luxurious, Gary says there's a world of difference between here and the village where he grew up. Meanwhile, Lancey orders Gary and Kayla to stay close if they don't want to get lost, adding they'll have a chance to look around later. So Lancey shows them around the academy as they pass through the armory. When they reach the library, Lancey tells them to keep their mouths shut and be quiet while inside. While some of the girls watch Sir Lancey and think about how handsome he is, Dan asks him if librarians can be knights too. The knight says everyone graduating from the Averian Knight Academy must volunteer in the city, and after serving for 2 years, they're allowed to stay or leave. Before heading to the dorms, Lancey shows them the final stop of the tour, which looks a bit like a graveyard. That's when Lancey explains this place houses the remains of fallen knights, or those who died for the kingdom of Alar. He adds that he came here to remind students the war never ends, telling them to engrave this in their minds as knights. Their first duty is to protect their home. As the students chant about fighting to protect their homes, Ray trembles with rage and thinks to himself, how dare these people use dragon bodies as materials to make armor and weapons? Right then, he points at the knight statues and asks Sylvie who they were made for. Lancey says these statues were made for the founders of the Averian Knight Academy, known as legendary dragon knights. When students start chatting away and asking questions about dragon knights, Lancey tells them they'll learn everything while studying the academy's history. As the students return to their dorms, Ray loses his temper and Gary calls out to him. Activating her dragon eye, Ray sees a sarcophagus beneath a graveyard, and as they walk towards the dorm, she senses something alive inside it down there. Gary wonders who they'll live with, and prays they'll be like-minded and easygoing. Meanwhile, Ray seems detached from the world, thinking about that living thing in the grave. He concludes that what he's sensing isn't magical creature energy, but something much weirder instead. But this deep contemplation is undermined by a moron asking, "Hey, are you even listening to what I'm saying?" Ray calmly says he's talking about his roommates. Right at that moment, they reach their home. Turns out they were both in the same dorm. So naturally, they start wondering who else will be patched in with them. Surprise, surprise, Sylvia drops in, and it looks like she'll be sharing a room with our boys. Gary is left completely stunned. When Sylvia sees Ray, she gets all flustered and turns as red as a beet. It's clear the poor girl isn't too happy about the situation. Gary steps in and says it's no surprise, as he's heard the academy treats everyone equally, regardless of gender. And look on the bright side, he adds, we're great guys. But Sylvia, shaking with rage, punches Gary right in the face so hard he ends up on the floor. Then she screams, "I won't stay in the same room as men like you," and storms off, while poor Gary lay there, flattened after getting beaten by a girl. The two witnesses stood jaw-dropped, saying, "Wow, what a scene!" Ray calms them down, saying it's just the young lady being spoiled. Turns out those other two people were our guys' roommates. Their names are Monk and Ian. Gary quickly pulls himself together and warmly welcomes them, introducing himself and Ray. As our boy cuts Ian's red hair, he thinks to himself how he also has red hair just like her. Meanwhile, Gary checks the dorm list and realizes 2 more roommates will be joining them. Dan and Marcia Woodwork. Meanwhile, Sylvia drags her feet, wearily heading back down the stairs toward her room full of men. The girl glares at the boys and warns them not to enter the room while she changes. While the guys hang out after getting kicked out of their dorm room, Gary says he already knew they wouldn't let her change rooms. Just then, Dan joins them and asks the kids why they're still standing outside. Gary blabs that they were waiting for him because they found a huge cockroach inside, adding that they're looking for someone to handle it. Hearing this, Dan gets pumped up and shouts about how these future knights could be scared of a puny cockroach, showing them how it's done. As Dan bangs the door open, the kids pretend to be shocked, struggling not to laugh because they set up a nasty prank for their new roommate. The next scene takes us to the cafeteria, where everyone is eating like they've been starved. Pranked by his roommates, Dan asks if this is even fun, since he's getting into serious trouble with the girl. He says she could strangle him in his sleep, and calls her a walking powder keg. With 5-finger marks still on Dan's face, Gary says it's actually nice because most guys don't even get the chance to talk to that girl. As soon as Dan blabs something about the girl, Sylvia overhears them and gets upset at what they said. While Dan and Gary panic and try to talk their way out of it, our boy looks quite pleased, devouring all kinds of food. Sylvia looks at them and mutters how they can eat like that while she's eaten away by exam anxiety. While our boy is thinking only of food, Gary thinks the girl is talking about the night exams and asks what that has to do with eating. Meanwhile, they keep eating like animals. Ray says everything is free. Sylvia looks at them both, fed up, as if to say neither of them is going anywhere. Meanwhile, the upperclassmen look at them and claim we shouldn't expect anything else from these poor country losers. They talk nonsense about these people stuffing their faces, acting like they've never eaten anything good in their lives. Referring to Ray and Gary, whose mouths are full of food, they both turn around and look at the upperclassmen, who continue to mock and laugh at them. Then those annoying seniors stop by Ian's desk and start mocking the buff redhead kid for his size. It takes up so much space. They say the poor chair will break and call him a peasant. By the way, poor Ian looks sad and is holding back his tears. The senior scumbags say they want to puke when they see these red-haired freaks out of Rennie. Hearing these colorful comments about himself, Kai stops eating. Sloth calmly sips his tea and presses down on the hand of his twin, Badger, who is about to draw his knife and rip the guy's mouth open, stopping him. Because they keep talking nonsense about how the red hair curse is contagious. They call them peasants and want them to just get out of here. Because no one wants to have disgusting red hair like hers. Fed up with this nonsense, the monk jumps up and tells those two senior bastards to knock it off. Because they've taken it too far. While Ian stops his friend from defending him, the seniors tell the monk to back off, asking if he really wants to get beaten up for this red-haired freak. They say at most he'll get a red belt, so he should mind his business or they'll crush him. These arrogant seniors congratulate Iana for knowing her place by calling herself a red-haired monster, and order her to stay away and take a detour if she ever runs into them again. The second that dirtbag spits those words out, someone throws food at his head. The senior guy is losing it and praying for whichever little prick did this to step forward. And right at that moment, our boy bursts onto the scene and shows off his moves. He slams the senior's face onto the table and twists his arm, pinning him down. Ray asks the senior who he's threatening to reroute, and he blabs that he's talking about that undignified, disgusting red-haired monster. This racket at the dinner table catches the knight's attention, and the kids snitch that some guy at the table is losing his mind. Meanwhile, Ray is blinded by rage, beating that loudmouth's face to a pulp. Ian steps in and calms her down, saying they aren't hurting her. Gary tries to stop him from causing a scene, saying the knights are watching them. Sylvia also mentions the upcoming tests and says they will affect the first impression. But our boy has no intention of letting that upperclassman go. He holds the man tight while twisting his arm. The students immediately call the knight and complain about that redhead guy. They're snitching on him for bullying another student. Right then, Sir Lancey dives into the middle of the chaos, and Ray orders him to let the kid go. Meanwhile, the older boy is screaming in pain, begging the knight to save him. As Lancey orders Ray to stay put again, Ray squeezes his arm even harder. Our guy turns to Ian and admits this was a lesson he learned growing up. If someone tries to take advantage of her or treats her like trash, they must be shown the price for their actions. Looks like Ray already broke the kid's arm. And the students are left in shock at the horrific sight as that red-headed psychopath finally lets the kid go. Our boy points at the kid on the ground and tells Iana that people only learn their lesson when they're taught one. On the other side, Their supervisor Lancey looks on in a rage, asking Ray why he didn't follow orders. Ours apologizes with a sneaky grin, saying that out of everyone, he thought his teacher would best understand what it means to have ear trouble. So, just like his teacher, he only hears what he wants to hear. Ray calmly holds Jerry's hand and tells him to keep eating, because they didn't want those annoying types to ruin their appetite. Meanwhile, Knight Lancey is absolutely furious at Rain's daring move. Whispers start spreading that those scabs started the fight, and that they've always been bullying people anyway. So, it was high time that red-haired guy put them in their place, and gave them a real wake-up call. After the incident, 3 commanders arrive at the academy. Students assume they're preparing for the test. He orders everyone to be silent as he introduces the head of Winford Academy. The 6 elders, the 6 heads of the academy, enter the hall cloaked in capes with their faces hidden behind masks. Students get nervous when they see these presidents, and they're questioning if this test is really that big of a deal, because they heard the 6 elders had watched the test before. Watching these 6 elders, whose footsteps shake the heavens and earth, Ray wonders if they are as strong as the humans who slaughtered him and the dragon race. Then he shakes it off and comes to his senses. Winford goes on to explain that these 6 elders, who will witness, will be testing the new knight candidates. And according to the test results, they'll get different colored belts representing their skills. They also adds that if students don't perform well, they'll get a red belt, which basically means they failed the class. But with that sweet smile, Winford motivates the students, telling them that even with a red belt, they can still one day reach the position he holds. Winford, firing up the students, shouts that everyone standing here has been proving their talents since the day they were chosen at age 5. He emphasizes they shouldn't give up, saying future training will sharpen their skills. Our boy takes a look at Winford and thinks about how positive and encouraging he is, as always. But then she starts getting a little bit worried. I wonder how he'll react when he sees her getting the red belt in a bit. Winford finishes his speech and leaves the stage to Lance. Lancey also guarantees that she'll do her job properly. Then he turns and gives Raya a deadly look. In the next scene, Lancey announces exams consisting of 5 different stages. These stages will test different aspects of the knight's overall abilities. It has names like the Power Stone, the Blazing Hell, the Unseen Passage, the Eye of Precision, and the Will of Truth. Lancey gives students the following explanation about the first stage, the Power Stone. All they had to do was push that huge rock. Once the rock reaches the target, they'll have passed this stage. Everyone gets 2 turns. If they mess up on the first try, they could use these magic gloves on the second attempt. These gloves will boost their power and help them clear the stage. They should keep in mind that using gloves will lower their points. Gary Ray leans over and whispers that the test looks pretty easy. The red-headed boy thinks this is child's play for him. But then he mumbles to himself that some people don't really want him to pass this test. While Gary tries to figure out what he's talking about, Lancey makes an announcement right before the test starts, saying he refuses Ray Talon's participation as the proctor. Meanwhile, Ray doesn't seem bothered by this at all. He crosses his arms over his chest with full confidence. Gary and Sylvia protest, saying it's unfair, and question why Ray isn't allowed to take the exam. Right then, Lancey says it's a warning to future knights to obey orders from their superiors. Also, if anyone objects to his decision, they can go and report the situation to their superiors. If his superiors told him to withdraw the decision, he'd accept without objection. Then he calls the first student to be tested. While Gary worries about falling out with Lancey, Sylvia advises him to go and report the situation to higher authorities, because he had no right to treat her that way. But Ours isn't worried about it at all. On the contrary, he says this makes things even easier for him. He tells his friends to go ahead and get tested, and he'll join them at the next stage. Ray thinks he's guaranteed the red belt with this. Then we see that both Gary and Sylvia pass the test. Even though the instructions were to push, Ian hugs Kaya and lifts him up, shocking everyone. Gary Cantor returns inside feeling happy, as Ray congratulates him and hints that the second stage might be a bit challenging. so he'd better have been prepared. While the blonde kid is confused, Ours points him toward the second phase examiner. It looks like the guy was from Reincarnated Academy. Seeing the proctor of the second stage, Gary panics and begins to brood over what kind of exam they will face. Since they never learned magic, Ray tells him the battlefield doesn't give a damn what they know. He predicts they'll just have to try resisting the magic. It also adds it usually. Those who are physically strong as an ox usually have even worse magic resistance. And that makes him think they're trying to test these guys' weaknesses. And through these 5 tests, they'll see their strengths and find the best way to develop their talents. Even if Gary's on board, he wonders if he's a genius in every field, but Ray doesn't seem to agree. Then the second stage, the scorching hell, begins. Overseer Gary uses a bit of magic on his forehead to present it, and Gary holds on for 57 seconds. Ray also congratulates him for holding out that long. While Gary thinks he did a bad job, Dan cheers him up. After all, for every hour in the magician's illusion, only 1 minute passes in the outside world. So he did a pretty good job. Looks like Sylvia is next. When the sorcerer begins to test her, she comforts herself, saying it's just an illusion and can't scare her. The girl is doing a great job while the wizard creates the fire illusion. 5 minutes have already passed. The others start gossiping about how good he is. While everyone thinks Sylvia is a goddess, the supervisor tells her she's proven herself. Then after that, it's Rai's turn. Sylvia wishes him luck as he reads the wizard's name. Our boy thinks 20 seconds is enough, or else he should just give up immediately. While creating the overseer illusion, he prepares to be tested as well. Suddenly, a fire-breathing red dragon appears before you. Our guy is stunned and wondering what's going on, because the red dragon looks like Ray's past self. At that moment, the overseer rises into the air with a sudden power. It leaves everyone in total shock, eyes wide open. Word is the red-haired boy is nothing but trouble and cursed. Seeing this, Winfred rushes toward the old man who looks unconscious. Ray stands over the man, wondering if he's okay, but the knight reassures her he's just tired and tells the boy to rest. Winfred finds it strange that the old mage's mana has been completely drained. This doesn't make any sense to him. In the next scene, the elders are seen investigating this strange incident. Winfred informs them that it's just a mana irregularity. So it's just mana exhaustion, and the mage should recover after some rest. But this explanation doesn't seem to have satisfied the elders much. That's why they're questioning how a mage from the prestigious Reincarnated Magic Academy could run out of mana after a test of this level. While others think the mage may have spent too much mana testing the students, Winfred tells them the mage is currently resting. And he adds that he will continue to investigate this matter. He also suggests another mage replace the proctor for the remaining tests. The old man approves. But as the knight leaves, one of the masked elders calls an armored guard over to him and whispers something in her ear. The guard assures he'll handle it. Then the old man looks at Ray Talon from a distance. Ours is walking towards his friends right then. After the incident, Ray asks about this mana irregularity. Sylvia explains that too. He said if a mage tries to force a spell when they're out of mana, it backfires and damages their body. Our boy understands the situation, thinks about how unlucky his friend is, and says that genius's troubles never end. While the two are joking around, the girl with the silver stones gets a bit suspicious of a mage from Reincarnated Academy of Magic. He finds it strange that she'd make such a simple mistake, and he's curious about the curse she mentioned. Just then, a noise breaks out, and the ground begins to shake. At first, they think it's an earthquake, but when trees suddenly sprout everywhere, everyone realizes it's magic. While the entire test area fills with trees, Jaren seems unaware of what's happening. Then Sylvia says someone is casting a spell. At that moment, an overseer appears and announces that the third stage of the test has begun. While everyone stands frozen in shock, the proctor orders the students to follow him and mimic his movements as best they can. And the third stage begins. Jerry can't believe the test is starting right away. Right then, the supervisor is already making an impressive, quick move. And the students follow after. The poor guy still can't accept it, whining about his classmates being so fast. Jerry challenges his friend today, saying he won't be defeated. Sylvia follows suit and leaves him behind. It's not like anyone's in the mood to wait for him anyway. On the other hand, the instructor is eating himself up, thinking, did I push these kids too hard? Maybe I should slow down a bit. But when he looks back, what does he see? The kids have appeared right beside him. The proctor was shocked, of course. Meanwhile, Gary's buddy Monk figures it out. They're about to catch the guy who's been leading from the start. Clearly, the overseer has badly underestimated our little guys. And the penny drops. Why should I pity them? He says, and flooring it. He's challenging you to catch him if you can. Ours are following the supervisor now, of course. Ray, man, I'm just not good at this running on two legs thing. He makes a weird confession that he used to sprint on all fours. Right then, he notices the arrows coming at them. And he's warning the people. Turns out he's a total maniac. So another sentinel was raining down arrows on them. The girl proctor really got her point across. There are too many brats. The stage 3 supervisor shouldn't hold back, just fail them and move on. But he says, no, they're sharp as tacks, just watch and see. Then the girl tells the supervisors to follow the guy or they'll lose him. And he adds that everyone should grab a bow. People are standing there like idiots, wondering what the hell is going on. In the 4th stage, they realize they are being tested. Gary wonders if his archery accuracy is being measured. Sylvia agrees with him, and they all set off. The stage 4 proctor announces that the targets are placed in the forest ahead. And they can pass after hitting 3 targets, while under the supervisor's intervention. That's it, phase 4. Sharp Eyes begins. Our boy thinks he won't really care even if he gets a red belt. But of course, he doesn't want to be last. So he decides to show off a bit and activates his Dragon Eye ability. The moment it's activated, a magic-infused arrow flies toward him in the blink of an eye, and Ray senses it instantly. Pushing his friend aside, Ray realizes he can't escape the attack in time. But by some luck, another arrow comes and hits the one attacking them. Our boy senses danger and thinks this arrow is too powerful for a simple test. Because they just barely made it. One of their classmates, Marcia, rescues them and asks if they're okay. Jerry thanks him and compliments him on how talented he is. Marcia mutters she's glad to be near them, otherwise she wasn't sure she could make it. Right after, Ray senses more arrows coming and warns everyone to be careful. They all manage to escape the incoming attack. Meanwhile, our boy grasps the situation and senses that something's wrong. The incoming arrows are covered in key energy, and they're completely different from the ones the overseer shot at them. He realizes someone wants to kill them, or maybe just him. Suddenly, another Oki tile is thrown in the direction of the students. But Ray sets his sights on him and draws his bow to stop the attack. On the other hand, the stage 4 overseer also senses the danger. Right as he's about to fire the arrow, our guy shatters his bow, leaving his classmates in total shock. They feel that something is wrong too. After a full power attack, the overseer chases the imposter, but is stunned by his speed. And it shocks him that the fraud could escape his attack without leaving a single trace. He wonders who on earth would want to attack students. He pulls the arrow from the tree and flings it. Then the proctor turns to the students and reassures them that the arrow accidentally went off course. He's telling them to continue the test. Ray realizes that the observer definitely didn't fire that arrow, and she's just trying to calm them down. While all the students are taking the test, our boy is questioning if someone dangerous has sneaked in. When they finish their tests, they find Monku and the 3rd phase proctor waiting for them. Gary and Ray tell Sylvia what happened. The girl is shocked, unable to believe this happened, and suggests they report the situation to the Knights. But Ray thinks it's better not to tell them. Gary joins him too, because the proctor from earlier didn't tell them the truth. He could have been trying to comfort them, but he might also be hiding something. Gary also points out that if someone is truly trying to hurt them, it must be someone authorized to enter the premises. This means the attacker could be an overseer or a knight. Hearing this, Sylvia seems quite worried about the matter. He's asking the kids what they're planning to do now. Ray tells her they'll see how things play out for now. Still, she can't help wondering about that bastard who tried to kill them. Looks like the intruder is trying to slip away after tossing the bow. But he's caught red-handed by a female warden, and she orders him to stay right there. The uninvited guest freezes. The overseer aims his bow at him, threatening him and asking why he's attacking new students. He says he could kill her any second and clearly tells her not to move. But the intruder reaches for his sword. But the overseer warns him again not to move, saying he could shoot him where he stands. The man is giving him a dirty look. At that moment, they start attacking each other. The next scene brings us to the fifth and final stage, the Will of Truth, which tests the student's will and ki control. Holding the sword, Delbert explains to everyone that it's made from an ultra beast crystal called the Firebird. It shoots flames whenever they grab it. She also says that while children might not have learned to use ki yet, they can try to control it by focusing their will on their souls. Then he calls the students, and the first to arrive is a well-built redhead boy named Ian. Ian steps onto the stage anxiously and grips the sword. A massive flame bursts from the sword, turning the boy's face pitch black. Lindsay recoils at this sight, calling the next student. The scene then cuts to what looks like an old man appearing to speak with the intruder. The old man looks disappointed because not only did the guy fail, but someone also got caught by the supervisor. The man is apologizing. Chibi admits she didn't expect to solve this problem right away. Then he puts on his mask, which lets the user change their appearance. He mutters that he's at least glad a signal was sent to his followers that the Pure Blood Guild never vanished. On the other side, he steps back on stage and controls the flames perfectly as soon as he grabs the sword. It's our boy's turn soon. Sylvia asks if Ray is really strong. Hearing this, Ray thinks for a while and says that Ray is extremely powerful. But the others don't really believe him because the first 4 test results were terrible. Just then, the blonde boy says he remembers something. He says he won easily the last time he fought Ray. But when they were attacked by a mid-level demon dog 10 years ago, Ray was the one who saved them and defeated the beast. The other classmates think it's a joke because they were only 5 years old back then. And they assume it's just a large wolf instead of a mid-level monster. Sylvia wonders just how powerful Lei Wen actually is. Then why is he hiding his talents? Just as the test is about to start, our boy grabs the sword and suddenly the dragon system appears. It asks if you want to absorb the ultra-level monster crystal. It looks like no flames are coming out of the sword. And the students start gossiping. They're grumbling that this guy always ends up in an accident. They're surprised to see the sword no longer glows. Ours is just swinging the sword around to see if it's broken. Delbert freezes in shock and snatches the sword right out of the boy's hand. He sees with his own eyes that no flames are coming from the sword. Delbert shouting like he's about to wet himself. Word is this weapon's made of Ultra Beast crystal, and it's a treasure of the Kingdom of Ale, or whatever. He grabs the red-haired boy by the collar and accuses him of doing something to the sword. But Ray, seemingly unaware of the situation, asks what she can even do against a weapon made of Ultra Beast crystal. She also adds that Delbert was staring at her like crazy, so he wouldn't dare to do anything. Just as the knight is about to speak in a fit of rage, the armored knight intervenes and mentions an urgent report. He whispers something in his ear, and Delbert is completely stunned by the news. Then he announces that all tests are over and the kids can return to their dorms. The kids sigh with relief too. The kids are told to be there for dinner because they'll receive their belts. The students are excited about which belt they're going to get. Ray hopes to get the red belt, but something else is on his mind because he manages to overhear the knights talking. Winford, who happened to be at the scene, is being informed by the armored knights that the 4th-stage proctor was found dead. By the time they found the woman, she was already dead. But what shocked them even more was that the body was still warm, indicating it hadn't been long since the murder. This leaves him wondering who could do such a thing. The knight decides to inform the elders immediately. In the next scene, we're in the elders' meeting room. The armored knights tell them about the corpse. They explain the overseer seems to have been killed in a single blow, meaning whoever did it must be quite skilled. The guard blabs that they noticed something strange. None of the alarms set for intruders went off. In response, one of the elders says it looks like an inside job, After all, there are always rumors about certain groups. The old man wonders if the Pure Blood Guild or the Dark Guild is involved. Others find it a disgrace that the Green Belt Knight's captain was killed in a test. That's why they had to get to the bottom of this. While waiting for their thoughts on his decisions, the elder warns them. Not a single word about this leaves these doors, he says. And he orders the knight captains to continue the investigation to find the culprit. When dinner time comes, all students gather to receive their belts, and everyone is nervous. By the way, looks like Gary and Sylvia are talking to a girl named Marcia Woodwork. The silver-haired girl is happy to finally find a female roommate. Fearing his surname, he asks the blonde woman if she knows Marcia and Woodwork, and it turns out she's her daughter. Meanwhile, Ray is deep in thought about the murdered overseer, convinced that whoever did this is definitely no ordinary person. But one of the high-ranking officials thinks commanders or elders could be involved. When Gary interrupts, he snaps out of it and asks if Gary remembers the adventurer they met on the Run Road years ago. They keep describing the woman they met, expressing amazement at the coincidence that she turned out to be Marcia's mother. But Ray doesn't seem to listen to anything he's told, which annoys Gary, and lately he's noticed Ray is constantly zoning out. Meanwhile, Sylvia wonders if he's still thinking about the person who shot that arrow. Gary is squeezing the boy's cheeks with all his might. It's then that Ray mutters, wondering why the sword in the 5th test didn't react to him. Our boy isn't telling them the guard was killed, because things could get even more dangerous. While Gary pinches her cheeks, the silver-haired girl finds it strange and mentions how unlucky Ray is. Just as he was about to say something about what happened in the 2nd test, the knight commanders burst in. Winford announces what they will distribute. They will be handing out knight sashes, so he's ordering students to step forward when their names are called. The first one called is Gary Blue Blood, and as he walks confidently across the hall, students whisper that he's the best, expecting him to earn the white belt. Others say their goddess, Lady Sylvia, is the best. The others think they'll both get white belts. Some support goddess Sylvia, convinced both will eventually earn white belts. But after the evaluation, Winford announces a black belt will be awarded. The blonde looks disappointed while getting her belt, and whispers about her begin to spread. After that, Ian and Sylvia grab their white belts, and some students lose it when they see the redhead guy. When Ray Talon is called, everyone's sure he's getting his red belt. But to everyone's surprise, our boy gets the black belt. And that shocks him more than ever. And Dan is whining because his friend Monk got a black belt, leaving him as the only red belt left. He's whining because even the worst performer got a black belt. The other student tells him the hard truth and says he can't change the outcome. On the other hand, our boy is confused since he got his black belt despite scoring low on the tests. He suspects there might be a conspiracy involved. Finally, the knight commander announces that from now on, they will receive training from different knights based on the color of their belts. While Gary's wondering what's up with this black belt, the guy, clearly a black belt master, is puffing on his cigarette. He's got the student list, glosses at the 2 redheads in his group, and sighs, hoping they won't cause him any trouble. He labels them the Dragon Knights of the future. The next day at the training ground, it's like all the students are returning to their dorms, but it seems the Black Belt Knights are waiting for their instructor. While trimming Ray's hair, Kyle keeps complaining, hoping their teacher will at least be someone normal. While our redhead is hoping for the best, their teacher sneaks up behind them and asks, "Are you punks gossiping about me?" While Kylie is about to wet herself in fear, the cool professor smokes a cigarette and says, "Follow me." Then Ray, Kyle, Gary, and Monk walk in a strange silence. Kyle is asking if he couldn't help himself and mention the teacher's name. Assuming he hasn't told you his name, Gary encourages him, saying, "Go ahead, champ, don't be shy, go ask him yourself." When Kyle excitedly asks the teacher how they should address him, our boy is stunned by the kid's tactlessness. The teacher walking ahead waves his hand and tells me to record. While Ray wonders what kind of name that is, Kyle assumes it's probably not his real name anyway. As they go on, this guy Delbert approaches and greets Sir Kaya. But she's already annoyed with our ginger boy. Delbert feels bad for the black belt instructor for having to deal with two red-headed brats, and starts messing with Ray Talon. He says you must be over the moon after getting your black belt. He adds that if he were the one making decisions, he wouldn't even let people like you into this academy. But our boy never backs down and hits Delbert with a quick comeback. Since he's not the one making the decisions, he's subtly mocking how unfortunate the situation is. Delbert, pushed to his limit and looking furious, orders Ray to know his place and not cross the line. He threatens, "I'll be watching you," and just as he's about to slap her, Kay steps in with his sword. And a reminder, Ray Talon is now a black belt knight. It wouldn't be good if we discriminate and cause bad blood between us. While Keelik pins Delbert down, the guy smirks and makes a guess. He says sooner or later, everyone will realize your prophecy about Ray was wrong. Then he just leaves in a fit of rage, cursing his luck. The students begin whispering about the prophecy mentioned by the day's knight. When they ask if anyone's heard it before, Kai stares at Delbert as he leaves, looking like she's about to kill him. The teacher tells the students to walk and leads them somewhere inside the castle. He says your private training will be here from now on. They step into the room, and it's pitch black inside. They startle as an ominous wind blows toward them. They're struggling to even open their eyes. The silence of this dark, ruined place terrifies Monk and Kale. They're terrified, wondering where Sir Kay disappeared to. They notice the man has suddenly vanished without a trace. While everyone panics, Ray opens his dragon eye, thinking the teacher has left. Because he can't even see the man with his dragon eye. "Can you see the coach?" Our guy says. "No, man, I can't see the guy at all." Right then, Kay sneaks up behind them, grabs them both, and scares them out of their wits. The master appears with a candle and explains they will train in pitch darkness to sharpen their skills. They're going to sharpen their senses. He says you're here until you merge with the darkness and make it your sharpest weapon. Hearing this, Gary is a bit worried. He chimes in, "I heard something, but..." Kay's asking if it's true that Black Belt Knights will be sent on assassination missions in the future. Ray understands his friend's concern. The master takes a puff of his cigarette and says your talents are better suited for assassinations than the others. Whether you like it or not, you'll accept this. Gary's putting his foot down, saying that's just how it is. Jerry's complaining, asking why we can't just fight like real men and stop playing games. The teacher steps forward then. He explains they were chosen for qualities others lack and pats Jerry on the shoulder. He says if you want to fight like a man, go ahead. Nobody's stopping you, don't worry. He orders you to throw away your black belts and fight however you like from now on. The next day, Ray checks his watch. He's ranked 300. He probably thinks this watch shows the current ranking. Lying in bed, he recalls Sir Kay saying the rankings refresh every day after training. Students of the same level can duel each other whenever they want. If the lower rank wins, they take the higher rank spot. So the higher your rank, the more you get out of it. Our boy gets up and asks how many students are left from our time. When Jerry says there are about 300 left, Ray gets upset, saying, "Tell me I'm the damn last one." At that moment, Dan looks at Jerry's watch. And he loses it when he sees the kid in first place. Whoa, and we were wondering who'd win. Dan is over the moon. I'm in the same room as the first and third. I'm laughing like a maniac saying I'm invincible and can do whatever I want now. While Jerry's getting annoyed at people showing off their ranks, the third-ranked knight, Sylvia Marcia, is just chatting away. Sylvia looks at Dan's unnecessary excitement and sighs, thinking about how silly men can be. Right after, he turns to Dan Monk and asks, "Son, what's up? Why are you grinning from ear to ear?" Monk looks at his watch and is secretly over the moon to see he's risen to 65th place. Believing he'd keep working on a roll, Dane was like, "No way." He says it's nothing important. 10 days later, as Ray walks down the corridor, he thinks about how close he is to getting 100 points for beginner monster crystals. But he didn't catch much while hunting. When he gets to the dorm room and hears the sounds of an argument echoing from inside, he's suddenly snapped out of his thoughts. Turns out Monk got into a heated argument with Gary. He keeps shouting that the only reason he moved up in the rankings is that special training. On the other hand, Gary won't back down and tries to prove his own intelligence. And he says that training nonsense is a bit of a scam and hasn't helped him at all. Monk fumes that the special training worked and the issue is Gary's incompetence, but Gary fires back. He mumbles that he can keep his rank even without that training. Our boy's trying to figure it out while watching them. Dan says he's never seen Manga this furious before. He adds that they're clashing over whether the special training for black belts actually works. Ray asks what the children are doing as part of this special education. Ray thinks it's already a well-known fact that Gary is terrible with privacy. Assassination and stealth are Gary's weak points. But while they keep bickering, Monk has shown great talent in this matter. Our boy thinks Gary might have a point, too. Better than Monk in all basic skills, even if Monk is gaining strength quickly. Overall, Gary is still stronger than him. By the way, Monk is shouting that you can't just insult the effort he's put in. Gary angrily shouts that he's just stating his opinion, and people can think whatever they want. Worried about them fighting, Sylvia steps in to stop the fight and asks Raiden for help. But our guy looks like he couldn't care less about their problems. He answers, "Take care of yourself." While Dan excitedly says it's a great idea, Sylvia snaps and tells him not to fan the flames. Monk suggests a ranking match to solve this once and for all. Gary says, "Count me in," and accepts the challenge. He's challenging her to see if those talents she loves so much are actually useful in battle. In the next scene, we're on the training ground. The students have already started the rumor mill churning. Word is spreading fast that someone is challenging the #1 rank. One of the kids heard the challenger is another high-ranking black belt and wonders if it's that blonde one. Hearing of the war, Sebastian, who happens to be Delbert's youngest son, is curious about the situation. But a silver-haired boy assures her there's nothing worth watching, because he says the fighters are just a few peasants from Rennie. Meanwhile, that bald, red-haired guy Kyle is energetically urging everyone to place their bets on the wooden box, getting predictions on whether favorite star Gary or Dark Horse Monk will win. Dan is the first to bet, but when he puts 10 silver coins on Gary, Sylvia feels her blood start to boil. Dan is yelling because he bet against his roommate, but surprisingly, his roommate Martha is playing Monk, maybe to pull off an upset. Poor Sylvia is shocked when she sees this. Getting more restless, he asks if Ray Monk has a chance to win. Right then, the fight begins. Gary and Monk grip their wooden swords while Kyle acts as referee. As they all witness this moment together, Kyle excitedly gives the starting command. Meanwhile, Ray asks Sylvia if she thinks Gary will win, and the battle begins as the opponents attack each other. As the fierce struggle continues, Sylvia explains her own view. He claims Gary is definitely a natural, has great technique, and stands out among them all. But Monk worked harder than everyone else in that special training. And right now, he's probably Gary's biggest rival. Monk strikes his opponent with such a powerful blow that the area is covered in dust and smoke. Just as you think the training is working, the smoke clears. As swords clash, Gary manages to block the attack. Gary says Monk can't win and needs to give up. Meanwhile, Ray decides that Monk has definitely improved and Gary needs to be careful against him. But he still thinks Gary's going to win. Our guy then yawns and almost starts dozing off. Focused entirely on the battle, Sylvia states that Monk cannot close the gap in his skills in such a short time. Meanwhile, Martha. Monk is sweating with stress watching him lose the fight because he placed a bet. It feels like everyone on the training grounds expects Gary to win. With one final blow, Monk's wooden sword is shattered, proving this expectation right. While Gary wins, Monk stands frozen in shock, asking how this could be possible. He collapses where he stands, while Gary apologizes, saying that's just how things work. But unable to accept defeat, Monk grabs the sharp and broken wooden sword, loses control, and starts running back. Gary has his back turned. Monk lunges at him in a frenzy with his sharp-pointed sword, shouting that it's not over yet. Seeing Monk about to stab Gary from behind, Sylvia screams, "Watch out!" Martha shouts at Monk to stop. The sword, seconds away from hitting Gary's neck, is stopped by someone, and blood begins to drip from their hands. That's the moment Gary looks back. Sylvia is shocked, wondering when Ray even got there. The person who appeared is Ray. He stops Monk's attack and tells him that's enough. When Monk finally comes to his senses, he drops his sword and apologizes. Meanwhile, Sylvia is thinking about how fast Monk just was, since she couldn't even follow his movements. Somehow Ray still managed to pop up there in the blink of an eye. Everyone's asking how this happened. Meanwhile, Monk keeps apologizing because he sees blood dripping from Ray's hand while stopping the attack. While their boy tries to comfort him, saying it's just a scratch, Monk says he reacted too impulsively and things could have been much worse if Ray hadn't stopped him. Despite those tense moments, students betting on the fight begin to stir up a commotion. Kyla, they're asking who won the war. They think they've won it back, of course. Kyla calms them down and says the results won't count because someone intervened. So they're going to give back the money they just deposited. But the crowd isn't happy about this. On the contrary, they start cursing Kyla out. And they claim that red-haired guy did it on purpose just so they wouldn't get the money. Things get out of hand when the students start throwing things at him. Poor Kyla swore up and down they get their money back, but it's no use. Meanwhile, the chaos on the ground turns into total mayhem. They call ours trash and rain stones on them. With stones flying through the air, students are hurling insults and forcing them to get out of the academy. They're shouting, "Red-haired freaks," at them. They mock them as crimson monsters, throwing stones and kicking them out. Suddenly, stones hit Ray's head. Monk jumps right in front, trying to stop the students from attacking him. But the bastard shut him up and told him to get the hell out. Meanwhile, she asks Ray, whose back of the head is bleeding, if he's okay. Sylvia and Marta are trying to stop everyone, but the crowd is going absolutely insane. On the other side, that silver-haired guy Sebastian Spony grabs a huge brick and gets ready to throw it at our redhead. But Monk steps in, throws the stone in his hand, and makes him drop the brick. Monk shouts for him to stop, saying this has nothing to do with Ray. The silver-haired kid snaps at him, threatening that he's marked it down. With Monka being a brat and all, Sebastian is totally losing it and becoming a ball of nerves. Basically, people are looking down on Ray again, calling him a red-haired freak and making him a laughingstock. Nothing good would have happened with him around anyway. They call it trash. They say they wish I was never born. They're literally treating me like a walking disaster. They're trying to kick him out of the academy. As those cruel whispers pierce through and echo in Ray's mind, hours goes. Why does it always happen to me? Is what they're questioning. And these scumbags manage to disappoint her every single time. Voices echo in her head, cursing her just for having red hair, crushing her soul with their piercing words. His veins are about to burst. He's driven mad with rage, and he thinks that you're the ones who really deserve to die. Right then, Sir Winford pulls up to the scene, and things are finally under control. Jerry immediately tells the knight that Ray is losing a lot of blood, and adds that it must be treated urgently. Winford offers to help with the wounds, but our boy brushes it off, saying, "I'm fine, it's just a scratch." She's asking the knight if he needs anything. Winford reluctantly tells Ray that his mother has come to see him, and that Scarlet is waiting outside for her son. Ray rushes outside and calls out to his mother. His mother greets him, says it's been a long time, and tells him, "You've become a grown man." He notices how much he's grown. Excitedly grabbing his mother's hand, Ray asked, "How's my dad? Is he okay too?" Since her mother is here, she thinks her father is fine too. They ask, but it seems his mother has bad news. She says his father is gone. Ray's losing it, thinking her father's dead. But Scarlet calms him down, saying that's not it, and explains that his father has left the house and the village. Our boy is pelting the woman with questions. How is this possible? Hasn't this man been bedridden since he got the infection? And goes into shock. How can they just get up and leave like that? Meanwhile, Winford, who stands outside listening to them talk, realizes he just can't find the courage to tell Ray the truth about the shadow plague. They used to say most people with this disease would kick the bucket within a year, and very few were as stubborn and held on as long as Jake. But in the end, even those powerful survivors would fade away into the shadows. They would become slaves of the shadows and turn into carriers spreading the plague. Winford concludes that there has never been an exception to this. Scarlet says Jake has fought the shadow plague enough for the past 10 years. He starts telling it by saying, "One night I heard a sound. I saw Jake sitting in the chair. He was awake and moving. The woman hugged him with joy, but Jake started turning pitch black right then and whispered, I can't hold it anymore. She begged Scarlet to please just kill her. As soon as she heard this, Scarlet burst into tears. I can't, Jake, he said, I can't. Suddenly the man's condition worsened, and the plague completely took over his body. And Jake suddenly burst into flames. While he was still begging her to kill him, Scarlet's soul had turned pitch black. He watched in horror as it turned into a shadow. Back to the present, Ray's mother says she couldn't kill Jake. She takes a letter out of her bag and says, Your father left you this letter. Ray opens the letter. His father apologizes for not being there while he was growing up. She's saying how proud she is of him for getting into the academy. Ray says, Thank you for being my son, and ends the letter saying she loves him very much. After reading that heartfelt letter, our boy starts sobbing uncontrollably, feeling as if his father had written his final words. But then he vows to find a way to save her. Ray lies helplessly on his bed, his mind a mess, remembering the talk with his mother. The woman said she'd find her husband no matter what. When Ray insisted on coming with you, Scarlet refused. She said you should go your own way, your father would have wanted it. She hugged her son tightly and told him how happy she was to see him again. She even told us not to worry about them, just do what you have to do. Our boy, lying in bed, faces the fact that even after 10 years, he still hasn't found anything substantial. He feels hopeless because there's not a bit of progress. He's stuck in place like a helpless person. He could neither avenge the dragon lineage nor protect those he cared for. A total fiasco. Just as he's thinking how much life sucks, he bursts back into the room and asks Ray if he's talked to his mom and what she said about his dad's situation. But our boy, heartbroken inside, says his father is fine as if nothing happened and leaves the room. Jerry, of course, senses that something fishy is going on. Ray leaves a paper behind as he leaves, and it catches Gary's attention. Just as he wonders what it is and picks up the paper, Dan sneaks up behind him and snatches it away. Jerry was looking at the paper so intently that Dan thought it was a love letter from a fangirl. Poor Gary, in a panic, doesn't know what to do and tries to get the paper back. But Dan, with that smug grin on his face, says, Don't be shy, coach, and wants to read this hot love confession out loud. While the two are pushing and pulling each other with the paper, their other roommates come in and look at them as if to say, What are these lunatics doing? Finally, Gary spills the beans and says the letter was actually for Ray. And at that moment, they all learn that they've caught their father's shadow plague. When he hears the truth, Dan blabs about what a tough childhood our poor guy had and says they should treat him better. Hearing Ray's sad story, Monk feels sorry for him. In the next scene, we head to the packed cafeteria and see our boy, Ray, walking all alone. But then Martha and Sylvia come over, as if by chance, and ask to eat together. Returning to the dorm after the meal, Ray notices his bed has been tucked in perfectly. When everything is spotless and sparkling, our guy wonders, Who the hell cleaned this place? Dan and Ian nervously mention what a sweet girl Sylvia is and claim she's the one who made the bed. While Dan and Ian's terrible acting makes it obvious they're lying, Ray catches on immediately and starts wondering what's up with these guys. The next day, our boy sees fresh flowers in the pot. Gary says he went and picked fresh lilies to change his friend's mood. Poor guy just wanted to brighten things up a bit. But Ray totally misunderstands and asks with that disgusted look on his face, What's up, Gary? You falling in love with me or something? Gary fumbles and shouts, No such thing, don't be ridiculous. Finally, he can't help it and asks what the hell his roommates have been up to lately. Gary decides to tell the truth and admits he saw the letter by mistake. Even though he tried to defend himself by saying he didn't want to violate her privacy and shouldn't look, things just happened and all the roommates ended up reading the letter. Panicking, Gary says it's his fault everyone found out about his father, but Ray puts on a smile and says, Man, you guys are great. Relieved that Ray isn't mad, they're suddenly startled by an approaching noise. Someone shouting to get out of the way. Enter Dan and Ian, carrying a heavily wounded monk covered in blood. Seeing Monk like this, Gary immediately asks, "What the hell happened to him?" Dan explains how Sebastian beat him up and provoked Monk into a rank war. Our boy, thinking rank battles end when one side yields, asks how Monk got so badly hurt. That's the moment revealing the truth. Monk already passed out during the fight. He didn't even get a chance to surrender. But Sebastian didn't stop, he kept hitting him. I mean, that scumbag did it on purpose. Just then, Monk groans and calls out to Ray, apologizing that he won't be able to help make the bed for the next few days. While Sylvia thinks the boy's limbs are broken and says a doctor must be called immediately, Ian runs to find one. On the other side, Gary Ray asks where he's going, but after finding out what Sebastian did to his friend, our boy is already furious. He says he won't let the guy get away with what he did to Monk. Just as she leaves, Gary grabs her arm and warns her not to be hasty, saying, "Snap out of it, don't be ridiculous." But Ours, burning with revenge, asks, "Gary, are you coming too?" Gary seems a bit reluctant, but says he wants to make Manga pay, though Ray clarifies this won't be just a fight, but a retaliation. Just then, Sylvia appears and says Sebastian is from House Delbert, and Gary adds that he's Sir Delbert's youngest son. So they'd better not mess with that guy, but our boy doesn't care at all. He says that scumbag started it, insists he must pay the price, and just keeps going. Furious, Gary yells at Ray for not taking it seriously, explaining that it's not the first time young Delbert has done this, and that no one at the academy wants to mess with him, warning Ray that he could be expelled. But our fearless redhead calms him down, saying, "Don't worry, I'm not stupid." He says if he challenges him to an official rank duel, he can get his revenge fairly without breaking the rules. Later, while House Delbert practices on the training grounds, Ray approaches and interrupts them. Two knight apprentices realize Rayan isn't one of them, and say he must wait for their training to finish. Wasting no time, he asks about Sebastian right away. The knights are asking if you're sure, remembering that Sebastian never mentioned a redhead friend. While Ray was telling them to move and not stand in their way, a silver-haired guy, clearly one of Sebastian's lackeys, shouts and asks what's going on. This silver-haired guy named Eric approaches them, while his teammates say this redhead is trying to force her way in, looking for Sebastian. Stepping forward, Eric says Sebastian doesn't know any red-haired freaks like her and scolds Ray for interrupting practice, even insulting her by asking if her parents ever taught her any manners. When they come face to face, our boy makes it clear that if he's not the one, he wants nothing to do with this silver-haired snob. As Eric grinds his teeth in anger, Sebastian appears and asks the redhead, "Are you looking for me?" Little Delbert takes a guess and says Ray came for a friend, not even bothering to explain, assuming he's also a black belt. Our boy gets straight to the point, says there's no need for small talk, and challenges him without a second thought. He's sending a request from his watch to challenge Sebastian. The opponent says this is a fairly direct move. But Sebastian refuses the fight and tells him to forget about it. Seeing Rayan's rank is 280, Sebastian asks our guy if he's scared. Young Delbert, however, says he thought this wouldn't be much of a fight. After seeing his low rank, Sebastian bursts into hysterical laughter, muttering that he thought the other black belt was the strongest. But Ray looks very weak. Then Raiden apologizes, adding he didn't mean to hurt her, and that it's just a natural difference between them and the villagers. He brushes Ray off by mentioning the black belts and saying he doesn't want it to happen again, while our boy bows down to this annoying jerk. Eric blocks his path, claiming Sebastian won't lower himself to fight him. That silver-haired sycophant just announced he's currently in 9th place. So if Ray can fight him, it might get others interested in fighting him too. He's asking his boss if that works for him. Sebastian happily lets Eric fight Ray. By the way, he's asking if you'll accept the boss's request if our guy manages to beat Eric. While the silver-haired guy has a grudge against our man, Sebastian agrees to talk after the fight. The Delbert students are trembling with excitement to see a real fight again, feeling lucky to be on such a strong team. Because every day someone arrives to challenge, hoping this fight lasts long enough. When they come face to face, Ray confidently tells Eric to attack, while Eric grips his wooden sword, looking puffed up with pride. He thinks the redhead is acting all high and mighty, and advises him not to whine to anyone when he takes his revenge later. The others notice the redhead hasn't even drawn his sword yet, and Eric thinks this is the perfect chance to show off his skills. And he thinks about using the trick Seabass taught him. On the other hand, the boss Sebastian actually looks on with pride, saying once again that he's bullying little kids. The fight is finally starting, but our boy is unarmed and just standing there. Eric makes the first move and lunges at him. Swinging his sword, he tries to stab hard to wound Ray. But surprisingly, Ray dodges the attack as if he's walking in the park, leaving Eric jaw-dropped. Eric wonders how you dodge such a fast and powerful attack, and says it's not over yet. He's setting up for another shot. As the fight continues, Ray dodges his attacks breathtakingly, as if he's best friends with the wind. As he leaps into the air effortlessly, a stressed Eric begins to panic, thinking he's attacking as fast as he can. But Ray is still running away from everything. Just as he's about to give up, Ray suddenly lands a heavy punch on Eric, and the poor guy hits the floor. He's literally smashing his face in. Eric shakes in pain from that punch to the stomach. After the silver-haired guy passes out and students carry him to the infirmary, Ray asks young Delbert if he's qualified enough to fight him. And if he accepts, he's asking how it would benefit him. That's the moment our boy shows him something to convince Sebastian to fight. It turns out Ray tosses 2 mid-level monster crystals into the ring and says if she wins, he'll give her both. Losing his mind at the sight of the crystals, Sebastian asks where he found them and states he doesn't want trouble over dirty goods. Ours explains that since his parents were adventurers, they left these crystals to him. Ray tempts him with the offer, saying there's still a chance to get them, because he hasn't used them for equipment yet. Young Delbert seems quite impressed by the crystals, because he accepts Ray's challenge. But he sets one condition: this ranked battle must be held in public. Sebastian says he doesn't want people thinking he took these monster crystals by force, and our boy just goes along with it. He admits that this is what he's wanted all along. The next scene takes us to the training ground, where the students are cheering for their boss. They're waiting for Sebastian to beat up that red-haired freak Ray. Meanwhile, walking with Ray, Kyle asks if he's really going to fight Sebastian, because he's in second place, and if this is true, he doesn't think it's a good idea at all. Anxious Kyle blabs that even if he wanted to bet on his own loss for quick cash, his opponent won't go easy on him. But Alma assures Ray not to worry and tells him to bet on Kyle, since he knows he can't stop her anyway. Kyle makes him promise to give the guy a bloody nose, and our boy bumps fists and agrees.